Hello, and welcome to Module 2 of Public Relations. I hope you enjoyed your work. I know it was a lot in your first week. I think you're going to find coming weeks to be mostly a little bit less intensive. Now you already have made your decisions. You know what your organization is. You know what the problem is. So you've really laid a lot of the groundwork down. This week, you're going to be doing a couple of things. You're going to be identifying that core problem, and you're going to be identifying five key publics. Now, that probably sounds pretty weird because nobody outside of public relations calls an audience publics, but that's what we do in PR. Um, this is basically the way we segment the general public, the so-called general public, into very specific publics. Remember that there is no such thing as a general public. That's a cop-out, and we aren't going to use that. There is never any call for talking about a general public unless you're talking about the general public that we're going to split up into separate sections, segments. Now, in your lesson this week, you're going to be seeing a whole lot of different ways that you can segment publics. It can be external and internal. You could have a primary and a secondary and then a marginal public. You might have traditional or current customers or something like that in the future. Those are ways of segmenting. Or you could talk about if you've got a single issue, proponents and opponents, or those who are uncommitted. Um, One really awesome way of separating publics is through the vowel system. And again, you'll read about that in the lesson, and that's used a lot in marketing. It may be applicable to your situation too, but it's up to you. You've got to decide what makes the most sense. So this calls for a little critical thinking, and you need a good foundation in order to make a good judgment. So here's my clue for you. This is sort of where I start thinking about a general public, or I'm sorry, a specific public. Um, what binds them together is their self-interest. What is in their self-interest? So if you think about a problem that your organization has, then there's going to be an external public that is probably very concerned about that challenge. But there are going to be a number of internal publics too, and they're going to be bound together by their own self-interest. For example, if your organization loses business and it's in business to make money, um, then then it's in the employee's self-interest to make sure that the company stays solvent, right? Well, a similar self-interest may be with the stockholders, if you have those in your organization, but they're even more concerned with the company's overall profit margin. So their self-interest is a little bit different. Think about activist organizations that are outside of your organization. They're really pretty much going to be single issue, but maybe your organization has gotten into some problem that has aroused their ire. So they've got a completely different set of self-interests. Government regulators might have a completely different set of self-interests. Maybe community leaders. All of this really depends on the core problem. So when you think about how you're going to separate the so-called general public into specific publics, then what I want you to think about is what is in their self-interest. What would motivate them to care about your solution, to care about your problem, and then your solution. This is going to be very important as you begin to develop your public relations plan. So keep that in mind. Also this week in your written assignment, you're going to be identifying a core problem. Now remember that the core problem is not the precipitating incident, the bad thing that happened. The core problem is generally how your organization failed to step up to the public relations challenge. So that is, generally speaking, the core problem. That's a pretty simple statement, so it shouldn't be that difficult. Remember, you're going to have 5 different segments of publics that you're going to identify. And again, you need to have all 5 of those. You can have more if you like, but I want a minimum of 5 that makes sense. This week on your discussion board, you're going to be talking about which of those 5 publics is going to be your toughest one and why. And that's really what I want you to concentrate on, that because public relations is not a place for shrinking flowers. We have to face that core problem that you're identifying this week straight dead in the eye and go after it and fix the problem. Now, of course, you're not going to fix the problem yet. Right now, you're still setting all this up. So I don't want you to get ahead of the story. I just want you to follow the prompts. Talk about on the discussion board your biggest challenge, your toughest public, the one that will be the most difficult to convince that your organization is really good. Then in your written assignment, you're going to separate 5 publics that are distinctive, that all have different self-interests. That's the main thing to keep in mind there. And then don't forget about that core problem, and don't confuse that with your precipitating incident, because they're very different. All right, I will look forward to reading your comments and to reading your assignments. If you have any questions, as always, please send me an email and I'll try to respond right away. Have a good week.